This is Bill Van Orsdel from WaveCloud. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, and today's Wednesday webinar is on discovery and sales optimization for your Amazon book page. Now, I know that a webcam can chew up bandwidth both on my side and your side. I just want to let you know I'm a real person sitting here, but I'm going to go ahead and close the webcam out now. So everyone should be able to see, in a moment when I begin sharing, you should be able to see the opening slide. Great. So before we get started, just a quick note, I am recording the session for playback later. So if you have to leave or if you want to let someone else know that this was a great session and they should watch it, we'll have a recording available. In the follow-up email that you receive, you'll also get a sense of where you can find that. We'll send you a link to that as well. If you'd like the slides, you're welcome to email me. I'm bill.vanorsdel@wavecloud.com. I'll show this email address at the end as well, so you don't have to remember it now. And of course, you can always just send an email to authorinfo@wavecloud.com, and they'll route that to me as well. So let's just start with a couple of quick assumptions. My first assumption is that you've researched your market. You know who your target people are that you would like to read your fiction or your nonfiction book. I'm also assuming that you already have a book up in the Amazon store. This is not really a how-to session. We're not going to talk about how to do that. But I'm assuming that you have a book there, you already have the metadata in place, and that you can modify or control the metadata. So if you can't directly fix it yourself or update it yourself, that you have access to someone that can do that for you, and that this is part of a bigger marketing plan for you. So the things that we're talking about here are really about the point of sale for your book. And so let's talk about that for a second. One of the things I want to do with today's session is I'd like to make it very interactive. And so I'm going to respond to questions when I get them. And I'm also going to throw up a couple surveys that I'd like people to answer while we're doing them. And so just to get used to how that works, I'm going to throw up the first survey right now, which is sort of, where are you? Where are you listening from, if you will? I've got a question here from Linda Allen, which I'll go ahead and answer, and I'll answer any questions that people would like to populate in the questions area in the dock on the top right part of your screen. And Linda says, is there more than one in the class? And Linda, the answer is yes. I think you were actually the fourth person to join. We've got 16 so far, and we've got something like 4 or 5 times that registered, so I expect over the next few minutes we'll have some more people join the class. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this poll in 5 seconds. Go ahead and vote if you would, and I'll show everybody the results. Great. It looks like half of the attendees are in the Pacific time zone. Actually, the fourth one shouldn't have been Pacific. It should have been some other time zone. But in any case, it's good to see where everybody is, and then we'll continue with the presentation as well. So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at WaveCloud. This is not a sales pitch. Yes, we help authors. We have lots of services to help authors to do some or all of the things that I'm going to talk about today. But really, the point is I want to convince you that these are worth doing. Some of these are easy to do on your own. Some of them you might need a little help. But it's worth understanding what are the sort of the real basics of book marketing in Amazon. Almost all of the authors that I talk to, and I talk to a couple a day, and I've got a team that talks to lots of authors every day, are doing something wrong or could improve something in their Amazon page. So we're going to really talk about what are the key things that move the needle, can move the needle for your book sales. We are, of course, an author services platform. We're also an ebook store, so if you've got a book that you'd like to sell, an ebook, we'd love to put it up in our store and sell it for you. We fundamentally want authors to be successful. We are readers. We like to read new books by new authors. And how do we define that? We define success for self-published authors in a couple of ways, but probably the most important one is whenever I talk to authors and I ask them what their goals are, and they tell me they want to change the world, or they want to get their message out, or they want to start a new career, or they want to create some passive income, or they want to support their speaking career, I always ask them to add one goal, and that's this. We ask authors to aim for making more than they spend on producing and bringing their book to market. In other words, I want authors to earn out against the investment in their book production and book marketing efforts. I'll go ahead and fire up survey number 2. Now what I'm going to do with these surveys is a couple of them are interesting for us because we're trying to figure out what topics you want next and when is the most convenient time to do them. But when we get a little further into the presentation, I think there will also be some interesting information for other authors who want to see sort of, how's everybody else pricing their book and how many reviews does everyone else have and what do they think about pricing philosophies and pricing strategies. So there'll be some information that'll be helpful to you as well when we sort of review the survey results as we go along. I'll go ahead and close this out in about 5 seconds, so go ahead and vote if you would, please. And now we'll share the results. So we've got a fair number of people joining before noon. Thank you again for spending part of your day with us. I hope we can make this as valuable as possible. All right, so I know things happen, and you might get on the slide. I mean, you might get to the event today, and you've got to leave. You've got to take another call. So, and I know we'll probably have the bulk of your attention in the first 5 or 7 minutes of talking. And so, in case you can't stay with us, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the 7 things that we recommend you do. You'll see this exact same slide at the end of the presentation today. Of course, we'll spend a spare amount of time talking about each one of these. But here are our recommendations, our best recommendations. Upload a professional-looking book cover. And sometimes you can create a professional-looking one on your own. Sometimes you can't. We'll talk about what that means. But there are 3 or 4 tests, depending on whether you're a fiction or nonfiction author, that your book cover must pass for it to be effective for you. Your book cover is the #1 thing that people are going to look at when they go to your book sales page on Amazon. Build social proof. Browsers, people that are looking at your book sales page on Amazon want to know that someone else read your book and liked it too. So you have to build the proof, and that's your stars, that's the number of ratings you've got. You need at least a 3.5 average. You need more than 20 reviews. You need to build social proof. Optimize the price of your ebook and your print book to match your marketing goal. And your goal could be to maximize downloads. It could be to maximize readers. It could be to maximize revenue. There are different strategies for each one of those, and we'll talk about that. Your book description, not only is it important that it be a very sharp and well-written logline or hook, or both actually, but it's probably also valuable if you make it look good, and you can do that in Amazon with some HTML. We'll show you what I mean by that. When you're picking your categories, so that people who are browsing for books like yours, make sure you pick, you get to pick 2 in Kindle, use them both. Pick a main category where you want people to find your book because it's like the other books in that genre or that subject area. But also pick the smallest one you can find that's relevant. We'll talk about why as we get a little farther in the presentation. Don't miss or don't skip the keywords in your metadata options for your Amazon upload. And in fact, I recommend that you use key phrases, not keywords. Amazon is a giant search engine for products, and we'll talk about why that's important. Also, if you haven't done so already, create an author page. Upload your book trailer, link it back to your anchor site or to your blog. There's an important resource here, especially with the acquisition of Goodreads by Amazon for interacting and engaging with your readers, and this is it. I'm going to go ahead and launch survey number 3. I think this is our sort of last survey about our readers and where they are and how they heard about this. This one is, how did you hear about us? Did you get an email? Did you hear about us on Facebook? Maybe you saw an ad somewhere. Or you talked to one of our author coaches and they recommended it. So please let me know how you heard about us to get to today's webinar. All right, I'll leave this open for about 5 more seconds. Great, thank you very much for voting, and I'll go ahead and share the results. As you can see, it looks like our email marketing is winning the day. Fantastic. So let's talk about why this matters. Why is it important to make these changes to your Amazon book page? Well, fundamentally, what you're altering is your point of sale presentation. The place where someone who's browsing through the Amazon bookstore, maybe they've heard about you, maybe they were recommended, maybe your book was recommended to them, and this is essentially them virtually picking up your book off the shelf and reading it. Maybe reading a few pages, maybe reading the blurb you have on the back cover, maybe taking a look at your book cover art. Fundamentally, your goal is to convert as many of those who visit your Amazon book sales page into buyers. Now, Amazon's already done all the technical hard work. They know whether the button should say click here, add to cart, or buy now. I mean, they've done all of that fundamental work. Now, you need to fill that page with the right content. The traffic that either you drive to your website, to your book sales page, or that Amazon drives to your book sales page, it's precious. You don't want to waste even a single visit. Every single visitor that sees your book sales page could be a sale, and you want to convert absolutely as many of them as possible. The basics of page improvement are going to require work. There is no doubt about it. You're going to have to write a little more. You're going to have to think carefully about what you're putting up there and the choices that you make. It's not something you can just sort of slap together in 5 or 10 minutes when you upload your book and think that that's good for the rest of your book's life cycle. At the end of the day, what matters is that a better book sales page creates better conversion creates better book sales, and of course, in the Amazon world, more book sales is a self-reinforcing cycle because you climb the ranks, you get associated with other books that your buyer may have bought as well, and you get recommended. So the more sales you get, the more sales you can get, and that's why it's very important to have a good-looking Amazon book page. I'm curious for the people that are visiting today. I'd like to know the status of your book. I'd like to know, have you written it? Is it already up? I'm writing it. So really what I'm trying to find out is this webinar that you're attending today something that you'll be able to put into practice immediately, or whether you've got to finish your book and get it up. So if you would take a minute, go ahead and just click and tell me what you think. I'll give about 5 more seconds. Looks like we're getting used to the polling. That's good. And now I'll close out the voting. I'll share the results. So this is fantastic. We've got some people that have started writing it, some people are finishing it and editing, and the majority of you with your book already in the market. So that's good. I think that you'll get a lot out of this today. Please feel free to go ahead and hit me with any questions you've got. I got a question or a comment here from Samantha. Thanks, Samantha. Clearly my time zone selections were not very good, but I appreciate that. So let's talk about the number one thing that you must do well on your Amazon book sales page, and that is you've got to have a good-looking book cover. And I don't mean that you have to go out and spend $4,000 to create a good-looking book cover, but and by the way, I'm not a book cover designer, so I can't look at your book cover for you and offer you an opinion that I think you ought to spend a lot of time listening to. But what I can do is I can tell you the questions you should ask yourself and you should ask your book cover designer when you're designing your book cover. And I know that for all of you that already have your book in the market, you're going to say, well, I've already done my book cover, I'm not going to redo it. Well, let me give you some ideas to think about. And you can look at your book cover right now and see if it passes these tests. So if you have written, if you've got a fiction book up there are 3 critical questions you have to ask. Does my book have an outstanding image and composition that stops the eye, that draws the eye right into that upper left-hand corner with some kind of outstanding image or color palette? Number 2, if you take all the text away from the front of my book, does my book cover, the image itself, does it confirm my genre? I'll show you what I mean with some examples in a moment. But it's very important. Readers want to know, hey, I was looking for a science fiction book, or I was looking for a weight loss book, or I was looking for a book on spiritual meditations. Is this book in that category? And now, of course, one of the great things for self-published authors is that you can do genre mashups. So you've got to make sure that if you've got something like romance and time travel, or vampires and weight loss, I don't know, I'm making that up, but your cover needs to convey which one's dominant, but the other one exists there as well. And of course, I'm going to use the word genres and subject area interchangeably. Genre, of course, I usually associate with the fiction world. Some people like to use subject areas instead of genres for the nonfiction world, but essentially I'm talking about what category in Amazon your book belongs in. Also, and this is more nebulous, but we'll take a look at it in a minute, your book cover, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, must convey your professionalism. There is a fair amount of bias out there against self-published authors. Essentially, your book cover has to tell people, I'm not a self-published author. This book has been professionally edited. The interior layout was done and looks great. It's easy to read. People like it. You're going to like it when you read it. So the composition on your cover, the typography, that is the letters and the font and the and the backdrop that's used or not. How readable is it in its thumbnail format on the Amazon book sales page? Am I using images that match my genre and are competitive in my genre? Are my colors and my themes and my image quality all up to par, up to a professional level? And this is important. I talk to a lot of authors who say, oh, well, I've got a friend who's a graphic arts designer, and they're going to make a stunning book cover for me. And so the short answer is, yes, they probably will, but will they get all of the other things right for your book cover? And with this kind of questioning, you can probably help direct them or help guide them when they create your book cover. I've got one more thing here for nonfiction authors that I need to add, but first I want to answer a question that comes from Mia. Mia says, does the Amazon provide resources to produce covers? So Amazon actually does have a book cover generator, and I've seen a couple of book covers created by it. They're not horrible. I'll say this, they're usually better than the book covers that an author will design for themselves using paint, and I've seen plenty of those. But book cover design isn't very expensive to pay for. Give you a plug for WaveCloud real quick. I think that our book covers typically cost somewhere between $150 and $250. And, sure, they can be less, sure, they can be a little bit more, but generally they're pretty affordable, especially when you consider that that book cover is probably the #1 thing people are going to look at in a very quick snap decision to decide whether they want to even look at your social proof or look at your book description. The one more thing I need to add for your book cover, the question you have to ask yourself as an author is, does my book cover include my benefit promise? So when people are buying nonfiction books, they are typically looking for some sort of benefit. Your book needs to promise it. Does your book cover show, tell, say that? And so let's take a look at what I mean when I say that. So let's talk about what a benefit promise is. In fact, we'll look at some nonfiction examples first, and I'll tell you about benefit promise, Linda. So, and Linda's got a question here. She says that Amazon is connected with CreateSpace.com. So I don't know if it's a question. It's absolutely true, Linda. CreateSpace is a subsidiary of Amazon. I highly recommend, and we covered this in our last webinar, if you're going to put your book up in CreateSpace, which we think you should as a print-on-demand book, don't let CreateSpace put it up in the Kindle store for you as an ebook. Instead, put it up in the ebook store yourself. Okay, let's talk about benefit promise and look at some nonfiction and book cover examples. So, I said that there are 4 questions you have to ask yourself about book covers. Is the image on the front of your book outstanding or arresting? Does your book confirm the genre or the subject area? Does it convey professionalism? Where's your benefit promise? Okay, so let's look at the Daniel plan. 40 days is a healthier life. Now, I think that says 40 days to a healthier life. So problem number 1, their typography is not great. But they do certainly have a benefit promise on the front of their book. So if you read my book, The Daniel Plan, in 40 days, you'll have a healthier life. I promise. Here's this other book, You Are Why You Eat. And the benefit promise is right underneath. Change your food attitude, change your life. So if you read my book, I'm going to help change your life by changing your food attitude. That's the benefit promise. The third book on the right, not certain. It's hard for me to even read the author's name. I think that's Dr. Miriam somebody, and for some reason Dr. Miriam has their name 3 times at the bottom of their book. I think those are some keywords at the top. I can't tell what that is. Clearly that book on the right is going to have a hard time competing with books on the left. Let's take a look at some fiction examples. So I happen to be a fan of science fiction, so I went out and picked some science fiction books that I really liked to help illustrate these same issues. So fiction books typically don't have a benefit promise. The benefit promise is escapism or entertainment or relaxation or whatever it is we read fiction books for. But here I've got 3 books. Notice, interestingly, their aspect ratio is slightly different. So the Atlantis Gene is a little bit wider of a book than Shadow of Freedom or The Master. So, there's a point here about book covers, which is you have some latitude when you're uploading your book cover to Amazon. I recommend that you upload the absolute best, largest file that they will let you. They will automatically reduce it, but as long as you stay within just beneath their guidelines, you can get a very quality-looking thumbnail image up there. So look at the Atlantis gene. That looks like a submarine stuck in an iceberg. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what that book's about. Shadow of Freedom. Is that a cat? Some sort of alien cat sitting on that marine's shoulder. That's very interesting. And then I'm not really sure what The Master's about. I know that it's a science fiction book because I found it in the science fiction section, but darn if that doesn't look like a piccolo, or I'm not certain. So I look at The Master and I say that doesn't confirm the genre to me. I look at the other two and I say, well, those do confirm the genre. They've got a decent image on the front. It's clear that the book in the middle, that's probably the print cover, and all they did was they transferred it over to the ebook cover. And you can guess that because the bug, the little red sparkly in the middle book right next to her face, is unreadable. So whoever designed this was clearly counting on you picking up it in a store, and they didn't change it or modify it. This is from a traditional publisher, by the way, and the Atlantis gene on the far left is from a self-publisher. Master on the far right is from a self-publisher. Okay, so now I'm going to pop up survey number 5 real quick. I'm just kind of curious, who are producing book covers out there? So for your current book that's in the market, or your most recent book, who did your book cover? Did you do it yourself? Did somebody else do it? Were they a graphic designer? Were they a book designer? Take a moment, if you would, and just vote here real quick and let me know sort of how you brought your book cover to market. Okay, I'll wait about 5 more seconds if you want to let us know how your book cover came to be. And I'm going to go ahead and close out that survey, show you the results. So it's interesting. We've got some folks who haven't finished their book cover. Some authors out there did their own, and then others went with, about more than half of you went with a professional, either a graphic designer or a professional book designer. So I hope that those of you that shelled out money, your professional graphic designer or book designer, that you're happy with the results. And if you're still doing it, or you're working on it, or you did it yourself, maybe there's some things we talked about here that make you want to rethink that. I've got a comment here from Linda. Thanks, Linda. I did mine myself using CreateSpace. They have a wonderful program to use. It was very easy and it looks professional. That's fantastic, Linda. I'm glad that that you were able to do that. In fact, I even think that CreateSpace may be free. Of course, my worry about CreateSpace is the image I'm going to use show up on somebody else's book, but in my genre. But I do hear that they've got a very good program out there. Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and hide that that poll, and we'll pop down to the next page. Let's talk about social proof. So after your book cover, the number 2 item on your book sales page, absolutely critical, it's the next thing people look at, is your star rating. You can't really control your star rating, not if you've sort of gone about getting your reviews in an ethical manner, but the star rating is pretty important. And important as well is the number of reviews that support it. So essentially what your star rating and what your number of reviews is showing someone who's considering buying your book is, hey, somebody else read this and they liked it. And then so if you're a science fiction fan, if you like Alien First Contact, or if you like military history, or you like spiritual meditation books, you'll probably like mine, because look at all these people that liked it. That's just fantastic, isn't it? The question is, what's our goal? What's sort of the minimum? I talk to a lot of authors who have 1, 2, maybe 3 reviews. Maybe they're all 5-star reviews. Maybe they're not. Sometimes they're from friend and family. I suggest that I wouldn't do any outbound marketing on a book until I have a minimum of 75 reviews. 75 reviews is, for me, the absolute baseline before I would be willing to spend any money on BookBub or any promotional sites. I would work very hard to get more reviews for my book. And you can do that, of course, one of the things we always say, it doesn't really help after the fact, but a review killer, something that will just kill your stars, is if you've got a book out there with a lot of grammar and spelling errors in it. So before you publish, professionally edit that book. Just make sure somebody other than your own eyes who does it for a living has looked at your book. We've done some other seminars. We've got plenty of advice on how to get that done on a budget. But I think that every book should be professionally edited before it goes out there. I'll tell you this, that the traditional publishers are starting to get a lot more competitive price-wise in this market. And all of those books that you're competing with are going to be professionally edited. If you're trying to pump up reviews in the back of your book, I strongly recommend putting an HTML link in the back of your book. I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. But link right back to your page and put in a nice word that says, hey, if you enjoyed this book, please review it. It would mean so much to me and to other readers like you who are trying to find good books to read. Also, we talk to authors who, they don't have a big personal network. They don't know a lot of, like me, I don't know a lot of people that read science fiction. It's not a huge marketplace, but that's what I write. And so if I want reviews, one of the services that we recommend out there, it's called bookreviewbroker.com. I won't go into it in too much detail, but just you should know, it is not a sock puppet review service. It is a service that essentially connects you with reviewers that might be willing to review your book. Before you go there, though, you need to know about the community issues amongst the top Amazon reviewers. For the people that spend a lot of time reviewing books, there are some issues there that you should be aware of, but it is certainly a resource to tap, bookreviewbroker.com. We're not associated with them. They're not related to us. We don't get any money for recommending them, but we like their service and recommend it to authors. And, of course, then there's always the friends and family and Facebook and a blog campaign to get people to read and review your book. You've got to make it easy. Gift that book out to the people that you think would write a review, and then ask them to give you an honest one if they enjoyed it and to put it up in Amazon. Let's talk about links in the back of your book. So I popped open my Kindle Cloud Reader plugin for Google, and I opened up one of these books that I've read. This one's by B.V. Larson. I think it was the second in a series. And at the end of his book, he actually gives a preview of the next, gives 2 or 3 chapters of the next book, which end on a cliffhanger. You can see the cliffhanger words there at the top of the screen. And then right after that, he says, hey, here are my other books. And so if you want to catch the next one in this series, click on Rebellion. And if you click on this Rebellion link from within his book, it takes you to the next book in his series. You could also click on the Extinction link right here and go back to this book and leave a review for B.V. Larson. Of course, at the bottom or at the end, he also has a link back to his website, which is important to capture readers' emails for permission-based marketing. Pretty important stuff. There aren't many authors that do this, and frankly, it's a little bit complicated because you have to first put your book up, and then you have to revise it and put it up again, this time adding the appropriate links. It takes a little bit of work, but it can yield more reviews, and it can yield follow-on sales to other books in the series or to other books, not in the series, but other books that you've written. I'm going to go ahead and pop up the next survey because I'm just curious what kind of reviews we've got out there in the audience. I'll go ahead and launch that. Let us know how many reviews are up against your current book in the Amazon bookstore. You might have just put it up, so you got 0, or it's been up there for a while and you've got more than 100, which is just outstanding. I tell all the authors that I work with that once you get past 20, you're doing it right, and you don't have to spend much more time or marketing effort on getting reviews. But I'm always impressed when I see folks with a lot of reviews out there. All right, so we've got about half have voted so far. I'll wait about 5 more seconds, and then I'll close out this survey, and I'll show everyone what it looks like. All righty, 1 more second to vote. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and close it out and share the results. So share. So it looks like most of our attendees are in the 1 to 10 zone, which is fantastic. I think getting over 10 is pretty important. Getting yourself over 20 is pretty important for a large-scale marketing that's going to be effective, because you don't want to spend money driving people to your Amazon book sales page unless you've got the sort of social proof that your book is worth reading. All right, let's talk about pricing philosophies for a minute. I'm going to get a little bit technical here in a couple of slides, but this is an important topic for authors to understand. And I'm going to predicate this by saying, at the beginning I said I assumed that you had done some research on your market. And when I mean research, I mean not just, who are the people that want to read your book, but you also have to research what's the pricing look like in my genre? Who are the dominant authors? Who are the dominant brands? If I go look at the top authors in the author rank in Amazon, how are they pricing their books? What does that look like? Essentially, there are 3 main pricing philosophies to employ in the Amazon bookstore. there's the free. We'll talk about. There's a couple ways to do free. Free is really for maximum downloads. It's a strategy that, in the sense of KDP Select, is starting to lose some of its effectiveness. So, of course, when you sign up for KDP Select, you're probably aware that you get 5 free days to send your book out, to set your book out. Of course, most authors, when they do the math, they say, well, I'll do that for 2 days, and 1 day, spread across some different weekends in a 90-day period, and then I'll drive some traffic with a BookBub campaign. That strategy used to work pretty well because you'd get a lot of downloads, and then it would pump you up in the Amazon rankings, and then you'd get recommended more. It doesn't yield quite the results that it used to. However, I think that free is still a very good sampling strategy. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. The next pricing strategy, of course, is the lowest official price that you can use in the Amazon store, and that's 99 cents. Now, Mark Coker from Smashwords does a keynote talk at Romance Writers Conference every year, and he has access to a lot of data. He has access to a lot of data on book demand price elasticity, and I'll show you what that means in just a slide or two. But fundamentally, the research he's got, and I believe it, he's shown it now 2 years in a row at RWA, shows that if you want maximum readership, 99 cents is the way to go, especially if you're a debut author. Now, if you've been out in the market for a while, this is probably not a great strategy for you. And then the next pricing strategy, of course, is the price for maximum revenue. So, you know, his research shows that book pricing and book demand follows a power curve, and so your maximum readership price of 99 cents may not be your maximum total revenue price. And I'll talk about what that means in just a moment. So I've got some questions that have popped up while we're here. Let's see. Should have a question for people who aren't on yet. I'm not certain what you mean, Ann, but go ahead and fire up a question. And here's Samantha. Is it possible to offer a few free chapters in Amazon and then link it to the rest of the book for a price, like the cliffhanger idea a moment ago? So, Samantha, the only mechanism that Amazon has right now is called the look inside mechanism. And it doesn't give you very many pages, and it's hard to predict where the cutoff will come when you upload your book. I think that that's a pretty good strategy to release a free version of your book or the first few chapters, maybe even a miniature novella, give them the first act. I mean, fundamentally, you're probably willing to give away 99% of your book if all of the people who read it would pay to buy the last 1%, right? So what I recommend to authors who really want to do a sampling strategy, and I'll show you an excellent example of an author that's doing that in just a moment, is I recommend putting those samples for free up on your author anchor website. So it should be easy to take your book, create an ebook version of it, create a Mobi version, EPUB version, a PDF version, put it up on your website for free, make it just the first 3 chapters, and at the back of that book, have the link to buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Apple. I can't put a link to Apple, but the point is, but I think you get the point. All right, so, and then Ann says, hey, when you put up your asking for views, I didn't have a choice for people who don't have their book up yet. You're right, sorry about that. I need to improve that survey. All right, so let's talk about free and how and when to make it permanently free. So I'm going to show you an example of an author. Let's make sure I'm showing my whole screen real quick. Let's go here, and I'm showing my whole screen. Great, so now let's go here. I'm going to show you an author whose book is up and available on Amazon for free right now and has been up for free permanently for months and months and months. His name is Michael R. Hicks. He happens to be a science fiction writer. This is the book sales page for Empire Redemption Trilogy, Book 1, in her name. Michael's strategy is, I write trilogies, and I give away Book 1, my whole book of every trilogy all the time. People like my book. Here's 410 customer reviews with a fantastic 4.5 star rating. And what happens is people buy my book, people download my first book for free, and they inevitably go buy my next 2 books. He has done this on 3 different trilogies. I've actually purchased all of his books. He's a darn good author. And this strategy has been very effective for him. Several other authors in the Amazon store are using the same strategy. I call this a sampling strategy. Michael's essentially written a very large story. He's broken it up into 3 main parts, each of which are complete books all on their own. And to introduce people to his world, his main characters, his protagonists, and his writing voice, he gives away the whole first book for free. It's a very strong strategy. I think that he's doing very well with it. And this book, this Kindle Price Zero, has been zero for as long as I've known about this book. How do you do that? This isn't in the Kindle Select program. I can't borrow this book or loan it to someone. You do it by setting your price to zero somewhere else, for example, at Smashwords, and then getting enough people to notify Amazon that the book was available for free at Smashwords. Amazon will then set your price to zero, and they'll leave it there. So it's a very effective strategy. It's a part of a sampling strategy for series. I recommend it to any author, any fiction author that's creating a fiction series. And in fact, if we take a look at Michael Hick's author page, and there's some other good reasons to look at it. You know, here's the first book of the Season of Harvest, the Harvest Trilogy. It's priced at $0. In Her Name, the one we just looked at, $0. From Chaos Born, that's a different trilogy. The first Empress Trilogy, first book is $0. And then his follow-on books are typically $3.99. So he just, and here's his other trilogy, the First Contract Trilogy for, again, for $0. So he's got 4 trilogies out there, 12 books. He gives 3 of them away for free to anyone who wants them, and that strategy is working actually quite well for him, very, very well. All right, let's go back to the. Okay, so whether you pick free or whether you pick 99 cents or whether you pick somewhere between $2.99 and $9.99 because you're trying to maximize your revenue, whatever you do, pick a strategy that matches your marketing strategy. Maybe you're trying to drive readership. Maybe you're trying to drive maximum revenue. When I talked about the pricing power curve before, so this is going to get a little bit technical, but let's talk about this. This is essentially a comparison of how book demand for ebooks works relative to how you might price your book. So if you've got a nonfiction ebook and you price it at $20, you might sell 1 copy. And that's because readers aren't used to paying $20 for ebooks. They're just not. But as you lower the price, let me see if I can get my pointer. As you lower the price, you'll sell more and more and more and more books. Now, along the bottom, this is a relative scale. So I'm not saying that you'll sell 1 book for $4 and you'll sell 2 books at $2.50. What I'm suggesting is that as you move along this curve, you might have sold X books at, say, $4.50, but at $2.50 or at $2.25, you'll sell twice that number. So the question then becomes not how many books I will sell, because remember, Amazon takes a royalty, but the question is how much money will I make? And so that takes us to the second graph. And this is essentially a graph of what my total Amazon royalties would be based on the number of books I sell times my price. Again, this is relative. So essentially what this means is I could price my book at $3.94, and I'd have I can price my book at 99 cents versus pricing it at $3.49. And at 99 cents, I'll have twice the readers. So I'll have twice the people who paid 99 cents reading my book than I would if I priced it at $3.49, but I'd have 1/3 the revenue. Because my book is priced so low, I'm in the 35% royalty band with Amazon, and so I'm not going to make as much money even though twice the number of people have gone and purchased my book. Whereas if I want to make 3 times the money but have half the readership, I should price my book around $3.49. Now, don't take $3.49 as my recommendation for how you should price your book. This curve, the shape of this power curve, is highly dependent on the exponent. And that's just a fancy way of saying, what's your genre look like for pricing? How big is your author brand? Is this book part of a series? How well known are you? How many stars do you have? And how many reviews do you have? So the shape of this power curve, which directly affects where your maximum revenue is in terms of availability, dictates whether $3.49 is your revenue maximizing price or whether it should be $4.99 or $3.99 or $2.99. My point is simply, and we'll get to this. Oops, we'll get to this here. I got to change my pointer back. My point is you got to run experiments. So let's talk about, let's boil pricing all down to one thing. Amazon has royalty bands. They affect your earnings, right? So in the 99 cents to 298 range, you're only going to get 35% as a royalty. In the 299 range to 999, you get 70%. So that affects your ability to earn money based on the price of your book. How big is your author brand? Are you doing a sampling strategy? Are you doing a marketing strategy? Is this book part of a series or part of a world that you're building? What are the norms for your genre? You have to go do this research. And by the way, don't apply the norms for an established author versus a debut author. Don't take the norms for traditional publishing relative to, again, a debut author that's self-publishing. Where is your book in its life cycle? Are you just launching it? Are you trying to get buzz out? And what marketing experiment are you running this week or this month or this quarter? You price the book too high, you're going to get few buyers, few readers, and no wave of viral reinforcing sales. You price it too low, well, you get a lot of buyers, but you might not make as much money as you could. I'm going to pop survey number 8 up real quick. I believe it's one about, it's about HTML links at the back of your book. So we talked about, I'll launch this. Sorry, go ahead. If you would, I think I have this survey out of place. Give me a sense, if you would, and this actually belongs a couple ago. If you're using HTML links at the back of your book to help link your book either to the next in the series, to another book that you've written, to your website, to a request for a review, give me a sense, if you will, about whether you're using HTML links or not. Okay, I see about half of you have voted. Just take a few more minutes to let me know if you're using links or you're not sure what I'm talking about. I'd appreciate it, and I'll go ahead and close out the survey now. Let's take a look at what everybody said. So we've got about half of you are already using links. That's fantastic. You already know this. This is preaching to the choir, and you've got some folks who are going to re-upload the book with some new links. So that's great to see. All right, so let's talk about the next important item after your price. So we talked about book cover, we talked about social proof, we talked about we talked about book cover, social proof, price. Now let's talk about book description. So the book description, and I'm going to go back to because I think it's pretty relevant, and I want to show you an example of one. Your book description contains 2 parts. Okay, part number 1 is the hook, the log line, the a young girl gets swept away by a tornado from her home in Kansas and is deposited in a faraway land where she lands on and kills the sister of the most powerful witch in the whole land. And she has to band together with a group of misfits to find a way home. Can she make it, right? So that's, of course, sort of I just made that up, the log line or the hook for The Wizard of Oz. You're familiar with that. Here's where Michael Hicks is doing his book description. What goes in it? So this is where it goes, book description. So what's important about your book description? Well, what's important is the content and the style. So let's talk about content. If it's a fiction book, you want a log line and a hook. So when something happens to the protagonist, he or she must do this thing or something will happen, maybe bad. So, if you read this book when you were a kid, The Velveteen Rabbit, right, marked for death along with his companions, a toy rabbit must learn how to cry real tears in order to save himself from being thrown into a burning pit by the boy who loves him. So I think I didn't quite copy that properly. So the point here is there's a question. Will the rabbit be able to cry the real tears and save itself from certain death in the fire pit? Right? I know the situation, I know the inciting incident, I know who the protagonist is, I know what the main conflict is, and that's a log line. That's the hook built into it. It's a little bit different if you've got a nonfiction book out there. In your book description, you need to build your authority. You need to restate your benefit promise, and you have to build your unique proposition. So it's great to say, read my book, lose 40 pounds, read my book, be a more confident public speaker, but you have to tell me why. Is it because you've got a special recipe that nobody else has? Is it because you've got a special chant that I can do before I step up to the podium that no one else has ever tried? And by the way, your authority is you've done this a whole bunch of times, so great, that's why it's going to work for me. So you have to have good content in your book description, but on top of that, you also need to have good style. So what do I mean by style? Well, this book description in Michael Hicks, he doesn't do everything perfectly. In his book description, by the way, he's not a customer of ours. He just happened to be someone that I think does this very well. It's flat. It's all text, right? This book description is black and white text. It's not exciting at all. It doesn't look very good at all. But how did this author, here's an Amazon author who's got bold, orange, it looks orange to me, and maybe like red on your screen. He's got some highlights here, and then he's got some text, and then it's got some more, and he's got some bullet points. So, here's a nonfiction book with the benefit promise, what's unique, the credibility, and with a good-looking book description. How do you do that? Well, you do that using HTML. And with HTML, you can put some tags around but I'm not an HTML programmer. I don't have any idea how to do that. How do you do that? You would use a tool. Oops, I'll go back one second. So the best place I know to find one is actually at the Author Marketing Club. If you haven't heard of Author Marketing Club before, it's a service that helps authors sort of pool their experience and do a better job at marketing their books. They have a free trial membership. And one of the benefits of their free trial membership is their Amazon description generator. So you can go to the authormarketingclub.com. Excuse me, you can sign up and use their Amazon book description generator for free, and it will give you the HTML code that you can just copy and paste right into your book description on your Amazon upload page, and it can come out looking better. You could argue about whether this is too long or not, but the point is that this is better than straight text, right? There's some things you can do to make your book description pop, to get people interested in reading about the conflict, the protagonist, the setting, and the question, the hook. Okay, so next on our list after you've improved your book category, your book description is your HTML. So, I'm sorry, are your book categories? And so for book categories, first of all, for your Kindle ebook, you get 2. So make sure you use both. But when you get the 2 categories, choose wisely. And so obviously the one you want to choose is the one where you want your book to sit. So if you've written an Alien First Contact book or a military sci-fi book or a devotional book or a cookbook, make sure that you choose as one of your ebook categories the dominant category where your book should appear. But then as your second one, I want you to consider choosing the smallest category possible. What do I mean by that and why? So on the left and on the right, I want to illustrate for you 2 things. First of all, I want to illustrate for you that on the left, this list of science fiction subgenres, starting with adventure, moving on to alien invasion, alternative history, anthologies, and so forth. This is the Kindle or ebook categories that are available to shelve your book when you're uploading it to KDP. On the right are the science fiction categories available to upload to people uploading their book via CreateSpace. It's the same main category, science fiction. Why are they different? Well, I don't know why they're different. I don't know why the taxonomy is different in Amazon. But the point is, you need to understand that they're different and act accordingly. So in science fiction, if I wrote an alien invasion story, of course I want it in the alien invasion category. Although over for the paperback version of my book, I might put it in dystopian, or I might put it in post-apocalyptic if the alien invasion was bad news for the people that got invaded. But I want to definitely put it in its prime category. And then I also want to find in my list for my second category the smallest possible category that is still relevant to my book. And why is that? Because if I've written an alien invasion story, and this is the first time we've ever heard from these aliens, I probably want to put it in my first contact category, and here's why. It will be easier for me to climb the ranks with my marketing inside the first contact category. And if I can get to be in the top 10 or the number 1 in my category, that's something I can talk about in my marketing. And I can also expect some benefits from the, if you like this, you might also like this engine from within Amazon. So think carefully about the way you pick your Kindle categories. Now, one way to do it is simply say, look, the people who read Robert Ludlum, or the people that read so-and-so will also like my book, so go to their main genre and choose that as your main genre. Again, make sure you understand that the two taxonomies are different, so that when you upload in CreateSpace versus Kindle, take advantage of the second one. And also, I want to throw this in real quick. I help a lot of authors who, when we go look at their books in Amazon, their print-on-demand book, their paperback, is on a separate and different book page than their ebook. So you have to fix that. They have to be on the same page, and the reason is simple. A, it looks more professional, like you have a traditionally published book, and B, it's easier to collect reviews in one place rather than having to spread them across two different book pages. Okay, so Leah's got a question. Says, I've seen authors include an editorial review section in their description. Was that done using the HTML code in the book description, or is it something else? So the answer there's actually two answers to that, Leah. One, you can put editorial description in book description, right? You can put, grab some reviews, throw them in the bottom of this, because this is the only metadata category that you have direct access to as a self-published author. However, if you look at Michael Hicks, he also has some reviews down here as well, so these are more formal. Now, I'm not certain how, as a self-published author, he was able to get this populated, but until we can sort of figure it out as a community, I would go ahead and throw your editorial reviews up here in the book description. And, of course, you can use, the good news is you can use that HTML code to set off your book reviews with a separate header so that, as people are reading through your book description, they can understand that now they've transitioned into a review section. Okay, next on the list. When you upload your book into the Kindle ebook store, you have the opportunity to enter keywords. And it's funny, they don't say this outright, but it's true. And the first thing you need to know is that counter to our expectations, on the internet, Amazon is the dominant search engine for products. So when people are looking for information about products, they want to get reviews, they want to check pricing, they don't go to Google and enter in, Husqvarna lawnmower model P2KH103. They go do that at Amazon because they want to find out if, first of all, does Amazon sell it? And second of all, what do the people who bought it think about it? So Amazon is actually a search engine. That search engine bar up there is a very popular search engine. Keywords are going to be critical for nonfiction. They're useful for fiction, but they're also critical for they're very critical for nonfiction. I recommend you don't use keywords unless you have some very unique ones like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You should use key phrases. And you have to use the phrases that people search for when they're trying to find out whatever it is that's inside your benefit promise as a nonfiction author. So you want, for example, a keyword that says, a key phrase, sorry, that says lose weight, or acacia berry, or truck repair, or cheap do-it-yourself truck repair, right? You want phrases that trigger people the people are likely to use when searching inside the Amazon engine for products and books like yours. And you can do that using, if you've got a Google AdWords account, they've got a keyword tool you can use. You could just use the Amazon search bar itself, but do the research in your market and understand what people are looking for. And of course, in the example here at the bottom of this slide, I've thrown in both some fiction key phrases and some nonfiction key phrases. So if I were Michael Hicks, for example, I might want to have first contact, or in her name, which is the name of one of my series. I might want to have some of the character names or series names in my keyword, so that when people are searching for my character or the alien race that's so vexes the humans, that if they punch that into the Amazon search bar, they'll find my fiction books. So it can be useful for fiction, but it's absolutely critical for nonfiction. And then here's the last thing that I want to touch on today, because we're running out of time. If you don't have an Amazon author page, you need to get one set up. Absolutely. Even if you are using a pen name, it can drive traffic to your author blog. What do you do on your author page? Well, let's take a look at some of the things that Michael Hicks does. I think he's a great example and certainly worth looking at. Here we go. So let's look at Michael Hicks's page. So, there's a friendly-looking author type, active author type headshot. That's nice. He tells you a little bit about himself. He humanizes and personalizes himself as an author. Of course, he's a fiction author, and you can do a lot in here. There's actually a lot more room if you want. Nonfiction authors probably want to use this space to build their authority and their credibility. Michael Hicks has also connected his Twitter account over here on the right to his Amazon account. So he's using Twitter to stay personal and stay connected to his authors. He's also connected his author page to his blogs. So, he's asking his writers. He's engaging his writers. What should I write next? I've got coming out with a special new version. So these are ways you can use this author page to engage your author, especially down here, which I think is pretty important. There's a customer discussion section. So this is where your hardcore fans on Amazon and probably eventually Goodreads are going to begin posting their questions to you as the author or discussions about your book. And this is where you have the chance to reply and to engage with your audience. And as well, you can tell that Michael has created a book trailer for his book or his series, and you can only put one up. So he's got his most recent one up here. Okay, so on your author page, engage with your readers. That's what it's for. It can be a pretty valuable tool, and it's one that I recommend that all authors go create and fill out. Okay, so we're back where we started. Our final recommendations: upload a professional book cover. Think about those 3 tests, those 4 tests if you're a nonfiction author. Build social proof. Have a strategy in place to get you over the 20 review hump so that if you do any inbound marketing, you'll be able to capture those sales. You'll be able to convert those sales. Play with your price. Optimize it to match your marketing goal. Are you trying to get downloads out there? Are you trying to get readers? Are you trying to get maximum revenue? Figure out which one you're going for this month or this week and play with your price until you can find the right power curve that works for your book. If you don't know how to write a logline or a hook, I strongly recommend you Google that on the web, especially if you're a fiction author. It's essentially the blurb that's supposed to go on the back of your book, and it convinces impulse buyers when they pick up your book to buy it. So it's got to be tasty. It's got to have a question, and I recommend doing it in HTML. Again, when you're setting up your categories, pick a main one, but pick one you could dominate. Pick the smallest possible one that's relevant to your fiction or nonfiction book so that you'll have a chance of climbing into the top 100, top 20, top 10. When you're setting up your keywords, use key phrases. Think about Amazon as an SEO engine. Use those keywords so that people can find the content that's in your book. Create an author page. Upload your trailer. Link it to your blog. Don't miss out on that tool. Okay, I think I've got my last survey. Also, I'll give you a little plug about the actually, I want to ask real quick about, actually, I'm going to do a different survey rather than that one. I'm going to ask, what pricing strategy are you using today? I'm curious how authors are out there pricing their book. So take a look at these choices. I'm doing it for free, or I'm out there at 99 cents, or I've got some other plan in mind. I'd be very curious about how authors are pricing their books today. All right, I got about a third of the attendees having voted. We must be a little tired. We're up to 50% now. I'll stop talking so you can read. And Ann just reminded me that I don't have a category for people who don't have a book up, which is, sorry about that, Ann, you're right, I need to fix these. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this out in 5 seconds, and then I'll share the results with everybody. And you can see what everyone else is doing out there for pricing their book. Okay, so we've got some folks out there doing 99 cents. No one out there currently doing a sampling strategy. We've got a bunch of people, and I think this is absolutely smart, conducting experiments. Find what the right price is for your book. You've got a couple folks out there who are trying to match what traditional publishers are doing, and that could be perfectly appropriate for you, especially if you have a great author brand and you're competitive with them. And then you've got others that are pricing it on a personal value basis, which is equally valid as well. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick plug. Our next seminar, we're going to take a couple weeks break now. We're going to be back on January the 8th. I've got a couple links here if you want these slides, and someone has already messaged me to get them. These links will also be in a follow-up email that you'll receive. I really appreciate your attendance today. I would be curious if I could get your feedback about one last item about, if you found this one valuable today, what would you like us to see? What would you like us to do next? The one we have scheduled for January the 8th is how to make my book cover contribute to a better book sales, but we've also got some others in the pipeline. We're trying to figure out which order to do them in. So if you would, take a look at this and let us know, what do you want to see us do next? All right, I've got about half the voting. We're about 3/4 of the way there. And I'll go ahead and close it and share the results. Thank you very much for this feedback, and thank you everybody for staying. We've run to the end of our time. We're actually a couple of minutes over. Again, I really appreciate everyone's participation and interaction today. You are welcome to email me. I'll be happy to send you some of these slides. Call me if you'd like. I'm happy to talk about your book project and let us know how we can help. Thanks again, everyone. That concludes today's webinar. Take care. Have a great day.